going to go through a few capabilities. We're going to start with the Student Information app and Academic Record. We're going to be using our fictional Boston College student, James Truman. And here I've already searched on James. This is his Eagle ID, so very, very straightforward. You can search on Eagle ID, username, or partial name. This is what we call the Student Information app header. Obviously, for privacy purposes, we have not posted a profile image here, but certainly a student photo can go there. And you can see the basics. You can see James's school, his degree, his major, his anticipated graduation term, and his status. He is a readmitted undergrad getting a BS in physics. Now, we can dive a little bit deeper to learn a little bit more about James's record. So we can go to his profile. We can see, you know, the basics, first name, last name, preferred name, any other data that James chooses to share with the university as far as religious affiliation in languages. There's also the ability here, obviously, to edit and delete this information. We also have James's contact information. This is home address, his local address, email and phone number, and custodial parent address. Now, James is not an athlete right now at BC, but if he chooses to participate in a sport, this is where we would store that information, what type of sport he's participating in, the season, the effective dates for that participation. We can also add, if he chooses to start playing sports, this is the place where we could add that information as well. And we're going to go to grades and GPA, so the academic record for James. So I'm going to show you a few features here. So you can see again, here's the program that James is in. It's his school, his degree, and his major. If James were in multiple programs, you could look at all of those programs in one view, or you could filter it by whichever program he's in. But right now, he's just an undergrad, as we said, getting a Bachelor of Science in Physics. Now, I collapsed this view to show you how you can look per term at his record. You can see basic academic record information, the courses taken, the instructor names, the credits, the grading scale. You can also see what his cumulative and a term grades and GPAs are. You can also look and see this indicator here next to the course codes. This is information that can be supplied for a variety of ways determined by the user, moving to more of a configurable model. In this case, we're just highlighting that these particular courses do not count towards his GPA. You can also expand all, as I mentioned earlier, and you can look at the cumulative view. You still can see per term the data and the corresponding course codes, the corresponding indicators to give you a little bit more information about that course for James, and then obviously the remaining academic record data. So for program enrollment, you can see James' current active programs. You can also see he's also minoring in accounting. And again, the same details that were on his header that has now collapsed above. You can also see a program request history. This is where James has decided to withdraw from a program, add a program. You would see that here. He has not done so. Advising, the advising module would basically just give you a history of past and current advisors and contact information. Comments are internal for internal users. So the users of this would be department admins, deans, faculty, student and academic services personnel, and advisors. So these would be internal comments, perhaps something along the lines of detail on maybe account holds or administrative requests and responses. The Documents tab would store things such as unofficial transcripts. If one had been requested and supplied, we could store it here. Exams, these would be things like AP scores, other scores that are attached to his student record. Audit logs is really just a history of activity on his account. This really tells you, what updates were made, who made them, when they made them, and why. And then the last component of this is admissions, and this would be any data that our admissions systems would want to share with the student record. I'm going to go over to registration for James. So I've already selected the school in the term for James to register for. So here I've pre-selected it. We've defaulted to all open courses. Now, this is really a game changer for BC because, as Mike mentioned earlier, our current student information system is a mainframe, and it is a bit of an island unto itself. So the idea that we have a course catalog, a course information and schedule, and registration as a combined, integrated set of modules is really a big deal for our user community, for our students. Today, they have to go to disparate systems and locations, and a lot of times manually collect that information. So James is going to, we're gonna execute some search. So on the left-hand side here, you can see we have a pretty extensive search capability. And I'm gonna walk through a few different types of searches. We have what we call faceted search, where we select multiple options, and we also can couple that with some keyword search. I'm going to keep the current filter of open set, and I'm just going to run through a couple searches here. So first thing we're going to search for is let me close this. Okay, so we're going to search. James wants to look for classes that are on a Tuesday. He also is interested in the subject area of history. So we're going to search on those. We're going to apply that search. We're going to add a keyword to this because he didn't quite get what he wanted. So we're going to add the keyword Atlantic. And we found what he wants. We're going to expand this. Now, this is what Dan was alluding to earlier. In this case, it's a lecture discussion combination. So as you saw in the course setup, the ability to designate that a lecture and discussion or a lecture and lab are bundled together really becomes quite meaningful and powerful for our users when they get to registration. So we see here the lecture that was selected, but we only see a subset of discussions that are compatible or do not conflict with this lecture time. That is the only options that James will get. He will only get discussions that are compatible with that lecture. So we're going to select lecture. But James can't add this to his registration cart because it's a lecture discussion combination. So James at this point could have two options. He can build a cart, which is what I'm going to show you in a moment, which is leading up to registration. Over a period of time before registration period opens, James can play with his schedule. He can look for courses in this new integrated course info schedule, course catalog, and registration all in one. Or once the registration period opened, he could also just register directly from his search results. In this case, the registration period has not opened yet, so we're going to add it to his cart. So here you see James's cart. These are all things that he has not yet registered for, of course, because the registration period has not opened. But James has been building this cart over a period of time to play with these courses and see what his term schedule would look like. So prior to selecting Atlantic Worlds, he had also been looking at an English course, and he had been looking at an art history workshop. He has two views. He can look at this from a calendar perspective and continue to build it. He can also just look at it from a tabular view, and this is really the student cart view. All of the relevant data. He can also if he chooses that, Friday late afternoon multi-hour art history workshop might not be something he's interested in, he can drop it from this view right here. He can also clear his entire cart. Now, once the registration period opens, he could simply register from here as well. I'm going to show you one more capability with the search. As I mentioned, we have a pretty robust search capability here. So I'm going to show you another criteria that we believe that will be really useful for students. Okay. So in this case, James realizes that he needs to specifically fulfill a requirement that he hasn't addressed yet. So he's going to have a really simple criteria. He's going to be more flexible about the day in which he can take this course, and he's simply going to look for courses that fulfill his cultural diversity requirement. Sorry. Yep, thank you. Okay, so here's a course. We'll just take it from the top. He thinks that it'll fit into his schedule. He selects it, and he adds it to his cart. And there you have it. He has built his semester schedule, and as I mentioned, once the registration period is opened, he can register right from here.